Good morning, fourth grade. Today we're going to be multiplying a fraction or mixed number by a whole number. Christina is planning a dance routine. At the end of each measure of music, she will make 1¼ turns. How many turns will she make after the first 3 measures? Well, we first have to find out, will Christina make more or less than 1¼ turns in 3 measures of music? She will make more. What operation will you use to solve the problem? Well, we will multiply and we will add. We'll show it a couple different ways. Write and solve an equation. 3 times 1¼ equals 3 times 5/4. Remember, we times 4 times 1 and get 4, and add this and get 5, and we get 5/5. When we multiply it, we times 3 times 5 and get 15/4. Now, in step 2, we can take 15/4 and add them all together. I have 1/4 added 15 times, and I quickly realized that in each group of 4 there is 1, because 4/4 equals 1. So 1, 2, 3, and there are 3 1/4 left. So my answer is 3 plus 3/4, or 3 and 3/4. So Christina will make 3 3/4 turns. If you multiply 3 times 1/4, is the product greater or less than? Well, if you multiply 3 by something less than 1, it has to be less than 3. Because if you times 3 times 1, you get the exact same answer of 3. It's less than 3 because you are multiplying it by a number less than 1. Number 2 says, explain how you can tell that 3 times 1 1/4 is greater than 3 without finding the exact product. Well, because you are multiplying it by a number that is greater than 1, the product has to be greater than 3. Now, in this section, we're going to talk about renaming mixed fractions. It says rename mixed numbers and fractions. You can use multiplication and division to rename fractions and mixed numbers. Write 8 1/5 as a fraction. Well, remember, we take 8 times 5 and add the 1. So if we take 8 times 1 plus 1/5, we times 8 times 5/5 plus 1/5. And we come up with 40/5. And we have to add the 1/5 to it. So we get 41/5. So the quick way to do that is 5 times 8 is 40 plus 1, and we get 41/5. Now we're going to do this in the opposite way. We're going to write 32/5 as a mixed number. Find how many groups of 5 5s are in 32/5. Divide 32 by 5, and we're going to get 6 and have 2 left over. And then it says the remainder is the number of fifths left over, so we put 2 over top of the 5. So we rename 32/5 as 6 2/5. Find 5 times 2 2/3. Write the product as a mixed number. So the first thing we're going to do is turn this into a fraction without a whole number. We're going to times 3 times 2 and get 6 and add 2 more to make 8/3. So we're going to multiply 5 times 8/3. we're going to multiply 5 times the 8, and that's going to become 40 over 3, and we're going to have 40 thirds. And then we have to divide the numerator by 3. So 3 goes into 40 13 times with 1 left over. That becomes 1/3. So our answer to 5 times 2 2/3 is 13 1/3. Says explain why your solution to 5 times 2/3 equals 13 1/3 is reasonable. Well, it's reasonable because 5 times 2 we know is 10, and if we take 5 times 2/3, we can turn that into 2/3 plus 2/3 plus 2/3 plus 2/3 plus 2/3 and get 10/3, and we know that's 3 1/3, and add that to 10. Now, number 4 says, sense or nonsense? To find 5 times 2/3, Dylan says he can find 5 times 2 plus 5 times 2/3. Does this make sense? Well, yes, it does. That's the distribution property. Yes, he can think of it as 5 times 2 plus 2/3. So 5 times 2 plus 5 times 2/3. Now, on Share and Show, they want you to multiply 2 times 3 2/3. The first step is to make 3 2/3 a fraction. So we'll times 3 times 3 and get 9, and add 2 more and get 11. So we'll have 2 times 11/3. When we multiply 2 times 11, we get 22. So that becomes 22/3. Then we have to divide our denominator into our numerator. 3 goes into 22 7 times with 1 left over, and that's put over the 3, so we get 7 1/3. In the next ones, we will multiply 6 times 2/5. Now, 6 times 2 is 12, so that becomes 12/5. 5 goes into 12 2 times with 2/5 left over, or 2 left over, and we put it over the 5 and it becomes 2/5. On our next one, we will take 4 times 2 and make that an 8 and add 3 to it, and it becomes 11/4. Then we have to multiply that times 3, and that becomes 33/4. 4 goes into 33 8 times with 1 left over, and we put that over the 4th, and it becomes 8 1/4. Our last one, we will make 6 times 1 is 6 plus 5, and that becomes 11/6. Then we have to multiply that times 2. 2 times 11 is 22/6. 6 goes into 22 3 times with 4 6 left over, or 4 left over, and we put it over the 6th. You can go a step further and reduce 4/6 into 2/3 and make it 3 2/3, or you can leave it 3 4/6. I will let you do on your own by yourself, and I will email the answers to Practice Book 8-4 later this afternoon. Have a good weekend.